Hey Clayton, can you hear us?
Canvas intercover, what do you think?
I don't know.
I don't
Can you
either.
hear us, Clayton?
I haven't tried it myself yet, but I'm kind of intrigued with the idea.
You're muted.
So I ordered a couple rolls of canvas to try it out.
I think you gotta have it on the slideshow. I'm asking if you can hear us. Oh,
And because of the orange or
it's
just.
all
I
right.
like it's more breathable, but also when you.
Hey Clayton, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just unmuted you for a minute. I'm gonna put you back on mute.
What was that?
But then also, like I said, I kind of roll it back. So the back is, got big wood heaters, I think just kind of fill them up, stir the bees.
And,
I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. I ordered a couple rolls of canvas.
Okay, so right off the bat, I would say, make it where.
so, you know, since you
Make it
mentioned.
fit the top.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
I was going off of what the, I don't know if you, and yeah, it's completely optional.
Yeah, because when you pulled it up, you could see how.
Yeah, it wanted to come off, yeah.
Besides that, it'll wick moisture that way
Haven't
too.
decided on anything.
It's sticking out around the edges.
Yeah, it would, but it is duck canvas, which is the same thing they make armor out of, so I don't think. it's
University
really
of
bad.
Delft uses them
Yeah,
because they're cheaper than inner covers. That's why they do them.
I like cheap and easy and simple, but
We made some, but we've not really used them.
I'm either cheap or I hate it.
I know.
Wait,
I started.
Are you married or single?
yeah. We've got some, but we haven't run out of regular inner covers yet since to where we needed to use them. So.
I don't use any. I still some minor finger covers because I can make them for like $3-4.
Yeah.
Oh, it's.
Okay, you know what, that's
And I can put 'em on.
fine. So how do you get along with that? You do it.
Yeah, they work with
you
your
go-
own
you go
migratory
wear that way
covers too,
too?
rather than, well, I guess,
Okay.
right, yeah.
Right. Well, what they're really nice for is when I split a colony, I can just pull half of it
Okay.
and work the half a colony and then pull the other half and work the other.
Yeah.
We use
That is
a,
what
we
I'm
put
saying,
a
Rob.
calming cloth on top, so it's
You
Yeah.
put what on top?
a calming cloth,
Yeah.
pillowcase.
Maybe that's what I like.
So we do that every
I
time,
just use like it off the top.
but we don't use it for inner cover.
Oh.
Hey there, kiddos.
Are we hearing from tonight?
Oh, man.
For women?
So, yeah, that's why I'm gonna start going to
to have those.
10 grade. Yep. Well, I'm gonna start doing my hacks to a single 10 grade deep and an 8 grade deep.
Or he was
deep
planning
on
on
top of
something
it, I'll make a
unless
shield,
delivery
like a
of
shield
the
to-
stove and
That way you can have
refrigerator,
all these,
tissue,
but,
but he didn't call me and let me know. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one of those kind of things done, and I went to.
Yeah.
Here, no, wait a minute, you got bees in there. What are you doing?
Pass mustard, Tom?
I had,
Yeah, I like the way they turn it out.
Name tags are coming. Let's write
Yeah,
it.
it's kind of neat, like, yeah.
using the black foundation.
Sure, well, that's, you do, I can do that too, that's fine, I don't really care. This year I do it on my shaper, but I got two cutters.
Pretty well.
I gotta take them
Yeah,
out.
actually,
Yeah, I'll probably.
Yeah, it's.
It really doesn't make a lot of difference. So, yeah, those are PVC, the bottom tops are both PVC. Oh, Jim, yes, sir, good to see you. Fine.
Very cool.
So, yeah, the, paint,
Okay.
Yeah, instead of,
Section
you know,
here,
some of
grease
the,
designed
the
down,
wax
you know,
has
Yeah,
raised and stuff.
little
Yep.
crimped wires.
Oh, look, we got the bottom board turned upside down.
And I think it's just.
Of course, it is reversible, so it doesn't matter. Turn the bottom over.
Okay, I want it for 5 days and. doing good. And I'm getting, are we gonna meet tonight? Are we gonna meet tonight? And I said, I'll make a decision at 4. And 4 o'clock, it kind of looked, we can roll with it, so that's where I went. Now, John came up with an idea of putting this online. We'll see how this works. Okay, so we may do it on future or however, whatever. We'll talk about that. Let's see what else. Sorry to those on the building workshop where I screwed up. I will make it.
Yep,
right.
so for the building workshop, all the nukes that everybody ordered, we're gonna have those made by the Salem boys. So we're gonna get those for you. We're gonna make those online. So, we should have those by April. I don't think anybody needs them before April, do they? If you're in an emergency, we might be able to work something out, but, we'll make that right and have them taken care of.
Thank you, Matt. And for those of you who don't know Matt, raise your hand. That's Matt.
Max got some exciting news to.
What news do you have?
Tell us what happened for you.
We put in for a SAR grant, which is Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, and we got, we're doing Queens. And so I got a subject matter expert.
Three. And one sitting back there too.
Cool.
Couple guys that will help, and so that'll be a good thing. We'll be able to integrate the 2 different half-day, full-day seminars up there.
Great.
And, so that was exciting, get that notification. Right.
That's big news for you guys. So they're doing a program right now where they're soliciting for donations to expand their hive numbers because if you're not familiar with Salem, I know we talk about it quite a bit, but so they do a program of horses was what they were traditionally known for. They started doing honeybees how many years ago?
We're on our 8th year.
8 years. So what they do though is all that honey that they produce, they sell in their banquet, their auction that they do. And that's kind of what pays for this program. It keeps it going. So they do, he's solicited for sponsors for his hives and stuff like that. So this is a big break for them because they're going to be able to start incorporating a very similar program. So like making queens is going to teach very similar things as their horse program, but it's going to do it a lot faster. It's going to allow them to do that in like about a 5-week period instead of 6 months that they're doing currently with their horses. So it really fits nicely. We're hoping it's going to work out. I mean, we should be able to get some queens out of it for sure. If they really figure it out, they can really get cracking. My goal for them is to put an extra hive for every hive that they have in the winter. So that would be a big deal because we want to get them to stop buying bees. So that's allows them to become sustainable, which is the whole drive of SARE. They do some really cool stuff. If you've never heard of SARE, SARE.org, SARE.org. They have all their bid requests and stuff like that. They're all online and they're all projects, and not all of them have succeeded. And some of them have gone over really well. So the Illinois Queen Initiative started through a SARE grant. Actually, I think they've got 2 SARE grants to start their breeding programs and to make locally produced queens and stuff. So you guys have some other news too, right? So you started working with 4-H?
Yeah, we're going to have a spin club too.
So that's
Talked
pretty
with
cool.
Cindy and one of her colleagues there, and so we've got that underway to have a 4-H spins special interest group. I'll act like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. But special interest group, spin.
Well, I think that's the best part is you get a little bit of artistic freedom. Kind of make some of it what you want it to be,
Right.
or what you need it to be, I should say. So that's what I mean. You got to follow some rules, obviously. But,
Yeah. Tom and I helped with the one here, and it's special interest group, and so they meet like 6 times. You know, Joe was part of that too. You know, getting some hives, bringing kids in, and again, as with everything, if we can get kids involved, they are actually a pretty driving force. So getting them interested in it and educating them. So it's nice to be able to do that.
There's a lot of us with gray hair here, so we need some
We need some
younger
young blood.
beekeepers to help me with flocks. But so part of that grant program is that we're going to have two outreach programs at the ranch. So we're going to do one June 13th, and that's going to be on increases. So that's going to teach some of the intermediate, I'll call it. I kind of grit my teeth at that because I think it's kind of an introduction thing, but It's gonna teach you guys how to go through and make nukes and do it live on some hives. So you'll be able to get to see that. We're gonna talk about introducing queens, we're gonna talk about introducing virgin queens, we're gonna talk about 48-hour cells and some of that stuff to kind of reduce some of the costs of making these splits and getting good genetics. So that's a pretty cool thing. And then if you stick around for the afternoon, I haven't figured out what that's gonna cost. It'll be a nominal fee. And actually, most of that's gonna go to the boards.
What's the date on that?
That's on the 13th of June.
It's a
And that's-
Saturday.
That's gonna be at Salem, Flanagan. And then in the afternoon, if you stick around, we're gonna do an IQI field day. That's the Illinois Queen Initiative. So we're gonna do a field day after that, where we're gonna talk about the basics of queen rearing. We're gonna demo some methods. We're gonna talk about like the milling method, and we're gonna talk about grafting. We're gonna talk about on the spot. We're gonna talk about all those things, and hopefully in some stations, and be able to do some hands-on with some bees too. So that should be a pretty good time. They have a really nice facility out there. So
Where's Flanagan?
it's gonna be north of Fairview.
North of Ridley.
Yeah, there you go. And then there's a second program on the 27th of June. That's gonna be a little more advanced. That's gonna be a
June or July?
That's in June 27th. So that's gonna be an all-day queen rearing workshop. Sorry to stare at my phone. I was trying to get the dates right. That's gonna be an all-day queen rearing workshop. That's gonna dive in deep on each of those topics, and it's gonna give you plenty of time to be able to actually graft from frames. You're gonna get to see some equipment. We're gonna provide a frame for you to put your cells in. We're gonna provide a grafting, I don't know what you wanna call it, console to hold the frame that you graft from. And we're gonna provide you a Ziploc bag of some cups and some grafting tools and get you going with that. We're gonna also do live examples on the spot and all those things. And we're gonna actually spend some time doing that rather than just kind of breezing through it in the field day. So the field day will be a good pre-training, and then the next session will be all day long. So it'll be pretty intense, I'm not gonna lie. Some of you have gone through the program with me before. Probably gonna do a little bit of different stuff, but one of the big things is we're gonna have a lot of hands-on bee time. So if you've never actually, this sounds kind of funny, but if you've never actually touched or picked up a bee, we're gonna do that to the point where you get bored doing it. So we're gonna practice picking them up, we're gonna practice putting them in cages, we're gonna practice marking, we're gonna practice doing all that on drones, get you comfortable handling your bees. And honestly, it's almost worth the day. I think you guys were, I not to pick on you, but I remember seeing the look on your face when you did that the first time, you did it and you were just so proud of yourself when you did it. And I was really proud of you doing it too, because it's a big deal to get comfortable doing those things and getting comfortable learning the dexterity to handle the bees and do all that stuff. So that alone is actually kind of worth it to do that. You'll learn how to mark queens and do all that stuff. And you don't necessarily have to be a queen producer for that, but it'll teach you how to create them on your own and not have to count on people like myself, or be able to promote your own over whatever genetics and stuff like that, or genetics that you buy from other places. So kind of a cool program. If you're new at things, let me know. We can maybe do some hands-on stuff beforehand, get you up to speed so you're comfortable going into that class. But it's going to be for the people that are super comfortable being in hives and working with things. So
Sometimes just even if you're just starting and you go and kind of explore what's going on, you may not feel like you're ready to go quite that far, but just kind of you go and kind of get some stuff within your brain going within that. All right, cool. John, you want to talk about your stuff?
Sure.
This is John. Tell them who you are.
Excuse me, Tom. Sorry about that. That's all right. Howdy. So yeah, I was here last month. So some of you recognize me, but my name's John Hill. My boy Lewis. We call ourselves Hillco Bees, and we're up in El Paso, just about 20 miles north of here. So I started keeping bees about 15 years ago when I was in high school, and did it for several years. Kids started to come along, got out of it, got back into it a couple years ago, and I'm hoping to ramp it up to a pretty large scale here in the next couple of years. But started making my own stuff and decided I guess I can maybe make it for other people too. So we fired up a website. We got a little thing going on. We're kind of trying to get kind of a full line of bead supplies over time, not yet, but we're getting there. But we're making some stuff right now, so we're making these boxes out of pine. I know some of you saw on the Facebook group, I was advertising made out as a Van-Tech product. Kind of getting away from that, just because it burns up my cutters and saw blades real fast, I found out. And not everybody
A
likes
learning
it.
experience.
Yes. It's a little harder to handle. You start with 4x8 sheets, you gotta cut them down. So we went back to pine. So, and I work at a lumber yard as my day job, so I can have pretty easy access to this stuff. So we're making them out of pine, as you can see. We think they're a pretty nice box. We are doing finger joint, as you can tell. And for lids and bottoms, we're doing something a little different because I'm lazy and I like quick and easy. And so we are making our lids and bottoms out of PVC. It's an exterior grade, construction grade PVC. So it never rots, termite proof, never needs paint. It lasts pretty much forever. They're a little bit, you don't want to totally throw them around, to be completely honest. You know, they're a little bit, they can be a touch brittle. In fact, this appears, Jim, I'll have to give you a different one. This one got a little bit of a nick on the corner here. That's all right. You'll be all right with that? Okay. But they are pretty durable as long as you don't throw them around too bad. We glue them together with PVC glue, and then we nail them together with stainless steel staples. So they're pretty much a lifetime lid. And we do the same thing with the bottom boards. Right now we're making a reversible bottom board, and I'll be doing a screen bottom board here pretty shortly. So that's kind of what we're doing so far. I did bring along this canvas, playing around with this canvas inner cover concept. I haven't personally used them yet, but as somebody mentioned, the University of Guelph, Ontario, they have a pretty active YouTube thing with bees. And then, what's that guy's name, other Canadian guy? Canadian beekeeper. Yeah, he doesn't use the canvas, but he uses like a foam thing or something, but he kind of on the soft inner cover too. So a couple of benefits that I've been reading about. Tommy, so you use them some?
Yeah, the Canadian beekeeper uses bubble wrap.
Yeah, the
He
bubble wrap.
uses like the hot water heater stuff.
Foil face bubble wrap. But the concept of a soft inner cover, and again, I haven't personally used these myself, so I'm just learning as I go. I just brought this along for a conversation mostly, but I do plan to have this as the inner cover for my complete hive that I'm selling for now. I'll be making some regular ones here soon too. But one of the cool things is when you open the hive up, you know, you're taking your hive tool underneath, you're cracking this thing apart, it kind of jars the hive and kind of makes some noise that disturbs the bees. With this, you don't have that problem. It's real soft, real gentle. And then also, if you just want to, I hope everybody can see here, if you just want to real gently just kind of look at a couple frames at a time, or if you're using a division board feeder and you don't want to open the hive clear up, you can just take the lid off and just kind of slide this back and fill your feeder, or look at a couple frames at a time, whatever. So those are a couple cool things. It's cheap, it's easy, it's simple, and again, I like all those things. So we're trying that out. So anyway, we do have a website, milcobees.com. I have some business cards up here. I'm available. I don't have a storefront or regular hours at this point yet, but I can be pretty flexible about meeting up with people and stuff. Or I work down here in Bloomington, so I can meet somebody up or whatever. We are also stocking, one more thing, sorry. We're also stocking double wax, one-piece plastic frame and foundation. We have black, the deep frames in black, and then mediums in white and black. So we'll eventually have some wood frames as well. I haven't gotten there yet, but so like I said, we're just kind of getting started. But thanks for giving me the time of day.
Okay, you got more cards?
Nope, I think that's it. Sorry.
So how much are those top covers?
Okay. The top covers, yeah. Voice from above. So they're not the cheapest thing. PVC is extremely expensive. I'm doing like $25 a piece on the outer cover. That's pretty similar though to what a wooden one is.
Yeah, I was gonna say
one of the suppliers.
it's cheaper than man legs.
Probably is, yeah. They're metal top ones. So it's but yeah, it's very nice stuff. And then the bottom boards are 22. So, but again, they should last forever if you take decent care of them. Any other questions?
So we can place an order and just come pick it up?
You sure can. Yep. I can work with you. I can set stuff up for if I'm not home, or I can meet you or whatever. Like I said, I can bring down a
Does
Bloomington.
work in town.
I do work in town. Yeah, I work on the west side of town here. So
Where do you work at?
Heinz Building Supply, lumberyard over there. So it's my lumberyard background. Where you go. So not too many people know about us. We're kind of contractor focused.
Okay.
So, but you can come by though too. We can cabinets, doors, windows.
Okay.
All right, enough of my sales pitch.
One more. Ken, are all these spoken for, or you
Actually,
want to talk?
so we real quick on these, those hot, after the meeting, take a look at them, kind of check out the fit and finish on those. Those are really nice. the handholds on those are way nicer than the stuff that I bought from Data and Manlink and things like that.
What's your price on the deeps and the mediums?
Those are top notch.
Yeah, so the deeps are 12 in both A-frame or 10, and the mediums are 10.
That's really nice. Pine.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, number 2 pine. So
That's gonna be way nicer than you're gonna get on.
I have low overhead, so I have low prices too.
I think Manlink's commercials like it.
They're not finished. They're unfinished. Yeah. Yeah. We might eventually get into wax dipping, but we'll see.
Ken's got some offers.
Yeah, I've got, one lady, Courtney Jean, asked for 10 to 20. I've got 10 packs of, they're sort of in bundles.
Sorry. Nothing up the system. Now, like you're going.
So they're, did that,
Okay. And how much and what do you think?
$10 for 10.
Okay, $10 for 10. That's what
So-
he's going over to all wax, so he's got some extra, he's moving on. So, if you're interested, see, you can. All right. Anything else that I need to cover, anybody can think of?
Dues, if anybody needs to pay their dues, Royden's here.
Let me take a break.
He's
again.
ready for that. Royden, how much are dues? $15. There you go.
of it goes to ISBA.
So there's that.
And we're trying this new option of explain to them, so in case they won't need.
Yeah, so we want you here. We want you to come to the meetings. But I wanted to give this a try tonight because we had bad weather. We got a lot of people coming from out in the country and stuff like that. But the other thing is I noticed we have well over 1,000 users on our Facebook page, which is pretty awesome. And I think that's phenomenal. So that's more than most of the other clubs, and actually that's more than all the clubs in the state of Illinois. It actually may even be more than all the clubs in the state of Illinois combined. So that's pretty awesome. I'm excited about that, and that's kind of what keeps our page pretty interactive, so that you're not just hearing one person's view. So that's I think really good stuff. So I've had a lot of people asking me, saying, "Hey, I would love to be part of your club, but I live in Taylorville, I live in Champaign, I live in Wisconsin,
You work Tuesday.
I live in Iowa, or I live in Indiana, you name Wisconsin, I think I had, Michigan, all that stuff." Asked me and said, we'd love to hear your presentations and be part of your club, but can't make it, to the actual meeting. So we're gonna give this a try. We have this nice contraption here. These are pretty awesome. We tried a couple of these at work too, but it's got a speaker up there and a camera and all that. I don't have a camera turned on. I'm just sharing the PowerPoint, and then I have audio turned on. I think I saw 12 or 15 people on there, so that's cool considering.
It's working. Kathy said, how about school nights too?
Yep. So I just posted this on our Facebook page maybe an hour and a half ago, and I think the email is sent at like 4 o'clock. So
Oh, sure, now I see it.
that's fantastic. So super excited about that. We'd love to see you here in person, because it's definitely not the same online as it is here. The whole idea of being in a club is meeting people and shaking hands and saying, "Can I come play with the bees?" and learn from each other. So definitely take advantage of that. So that's it. I think that's everything we got. Yep. So presentation tonight is to talk about what to do to get your bees going. So we had a request from the club that kind of talk about, well, what do we need to do now that my bees made it through the winter? That's a big deal right there. So happy to hear that some people are having some good success there. So that's great. I hear everybody say, "Oh, well, my bees made it through winter because it's been a mild winter." I'm a strong believer that cold doesn't kill bees. So as long as you have food on those hives, those bees will make it through winter. Disease and starvation is what kills bees, and moisture. So as long as you get those in check, you should be in good shape. So that's probably something to figure out with those inner covers and those lids there, to figure out some shim systems on there. You should be in great shape. But so I called the spring training because I'm starting to get excited about baseball. Get to go to Arizona, bucket list item. I get to go to Cubs spring training for the first time. I've always wanted to go. So I figured I'd call this spring training. So my name is Tom Pancone. I think most of you know me. I run Honey Pimp Apiaries. You can find me on Facebook, or I do have a website now, spun up, honeypimpapiaries.com. If you can't spell it on the Facebook link, you can click on there. Let's see. So let's see right here. How many of you are brand new this year? First time getting your bees. Okay, so we got a couple, a small handful. So we're going to talk about you guys at the end. So I'm glad to see everybody else has had bees before. How many of those of you have bees that made it through the winter?
So far.
That's fantastic. I am super excited to see that. Because last year I think we had like 3. So that's great news. I think that says a lot right there. So that kind of helps me gear where I need to go here with the presentation. So the one thing I hate doing is planning ahead, but beekeeping will teach you this very painfully, that if you don't do it, they will make you do it. So I like to turn everything back from when do things start to bloom? So I don't know if anybody's been looking at their trees. I'll post these slides for you, so you don't have to worry about taking pictures and all that fun stuff. And actually, I'm recording this session, so I'm hoping I can post that too.
I should be able to put the handout on there too.
You do what?
The handout can probably be.
Yeah, I got a handout here from the guy who started our club, Carl Wenning. He published a whole bunch of stuff in the American Bee Journal. This is a great article that I kind of based everything on for this talk. So definitely some good stuff to learn there. If we run out, I can post the link. He's still got it on his personal website on ISU, so you can get that. But anyways, so when do the blooms start? So hopefully you're all antsy like I am for spring. I'll tell you what, I got the shake so bad it's not even funny. But all this free time. So looking at our maple trees right now, I don't know, I feel like in my yard, my maple trees are probably a week or 2 out from budding. So actually I see them budding already, they're bud break already. So that means the blooms are gonna come. So these warm weekends, I mean this weekend I think is slated for high 40s. My bees were out in force last weekend. They were bringing in something, I don't know what it was, but it might have been chicken feed or something like that, who knows, but they were bringing stuff in for sure. So if we look at our blooms and our main flows, so if we look at what our major flow is for our area, we probably all have maybe some minor differences. So like, for example, where Royden lives, he's on a whole big section of timber, and he's got a ton of black locust trees. One of my apiaries is on a big stand of black locust trees, maybe like probably 40-ish acres of it, and that's a tremendous flow. So I know at that apiary, that's my major flow that I get the majority of my honey from at that place. So that bloom, give or take, right, because nothing's for certain, most of the stuff happens based on what are called degree days, and or some are phototropic, which means how much sun the plant gets. So things like soybeans and stuff like that are a combination of degree days and phototropic. And then there's other things that are strictly degree days. So you can Google degree days for bloom and whatever your plant is, and you can find some lists and see when those actually, how many degree days, and you can actually Google and look on the National Weather Service where we're at with our degree days, so you can kind of guess when that's going to happen. But back to the black locust trees that Royden's flush with over by him, that's about Mother's Day, give or take, right? A give or take. So I've seen that swing 2 weeks, maybe. Would you say more than 2 weeks?
Well, I'll tell you what, once they bloom, we usually get rain.
Yes.
So they may be bloom for a week
Yes.
most, and then the rain just shrinks.
Yeah, the last couple of years kind of got screwed with those. So that the rains were pretty bad, and we had some cold spells and stuff like that. But before, I can remember having 1 year, I think we had like 2.5, 3 weeks on a bloom, and most of it was pretty good. So if we dial back from that bloom date 5 to 6 weeks, we can figure out when we got to start building up our hives for that flow. So if your main flow is sweet clover, you know that's going to be probably Father's Day-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood, give or take, based on your variety of clover that you got. There's a million different kinds of clover, and there's even probably a dozen different sweet clover major varieties as well. Some of them bloom every other year, some bloom every year. So your results may vary. And we're gonna get to that part in a minute, but what you wanna do is figure out those major flows and then dial back 6 weeks. So the reason why is it takes 21 days for a worker bee to emerge. So that's definitely one you should write down. So if you take 21 days from the time that egg's laid to the time that bee emerges, plus 2 to 3 weeks for it to harden and be able to forage. So those bees have, a cycle of things that they have to do. So, 5 to 6 weeks before that bee is going to be foraging. So that means you got to start preparing like 6 weeks before that bloom is going to happen for your hives to build. And I would say you probably might even want to be about 8 weeks because you might want a cycle or two of bees, in there. So they start building like crazy. Let's see here. So what to feed? So feeding in the spring to stimulate, you're going to use a 2-to-1 feed. I'm sorry, a 1-to-1 feed. To sustain or to put up stores, you're going to want to feed a 2-to-1. So to start getting your hives to start building brood, you want to do a 1-to-1 to stimulate nectar. You can even go a little shy of that. So 1-to-1, what that means is 1 part by weight of each. So the nice part about sugar, though, is it just so happens to be the same by volume or weight. So you could use an ice cream bucket of sugar and an ice cream bucket of water. You can use a 5-gallon bucket of water and a 5-gallon bucket of sugar. You can use 2 bags of sugar and a gallon of water, whatever, you're okay. And you say, whoa, pump the brakes, Tom. 2 bags of sugar is 8 pounds, and a gallon of water is 8.6 pounds. What's the deal here? So if you go a little light, the bees don't care. They're not going to taste it and say, this is horrible, take it back. We are not going to use this. As a matter of fact, some people will say that a lighter syrup will stimulate them more. I don't know. I know that I usually mix just because I'm not really good with math and I don't want to be good at math. So I usually do 2 bags of sugar to a gallon of water. And even then, a lot of times I just eyeball it. So again, the bees don't care. That's what's important. So as long as you're feeding them. So bees also need syrup and they need pollen. So either pollen that you stored from last year or pollen substitute. Either one is good. So pollen is their protein and the syrup is going to be their carbohydrates. So just like us, we need both, they need both as well. So one thing to take into account, there's a lot of research about should I use real pollen, should I use pollen sub? Do your reading on that and figure out how diligent you're going to be at storing your pollen that you collect during season. Because I'll bet you're probably not going to be diligent enough to make it as nutritious as they need. So even then, so the artificial pollen sub deteriorates as it sits. So if you go buy a big 50-pound bag or a 5-gallon bucket or whatever, you want to keep it dry and cold, and that'll keep the nutritional value high. So that's kind of a pro tip there you want to pay attention to, because you might have that case of pollen patties that have been sitting in your garage all summer and stuff like that, and you might only get 20% of the nutritional value in that. Yeah,
What's your recommendation for mixing it in with the 1-to-1 for substitute?
Mixing pollen into your syrup?
How much do you mix in?
I don't mix it into my syrup. So what I do is I'll put a portion of a pollen patty. I'm pretty stingy and cheap. So I put a portion of a pollen patty because some of my hives will gobble it up and others won't even touch it. So I'll put like half a patty or even a quarter of a patty on there. Probably this weekend I'll start putting stuff on actually just for me. It may not be we're going to get to that in a minute. That's the right choice for you guys. But I'll put a portion on there and see what they do. So I like to check my bees very often and see how they're taking that up. And if they're taking it up, I'm going to give them as much as they want. So if they want to eat it up and gobble it up, I'm going to give them as much as they're going to take. So they're separate. So I'm going to have a pollen patty on top, and then I'm going to have a frame feeder. Typically, I use a frame feeder. That's not, I mean, for me, that's what works best. Your results may vary. You may like the mason jars on the front board feeders. You may like mason jars on an inner cover. That's probably something we should make. If you've ever seen them, it's like a board that goes on top there, and you put a super over it, and you just put a bunch of mason jars on there. You can use, there's all kinds of feeders. Man Lake will figure plenty of ways to spend your money. You can look on their website or in their Red Joe. There's plenty of stuff in there you do and don't need. So you know, take a look. There's lots of options. There's a lot of things that work that are really cool that, you know, give them a try and let us know how it works. I think you guys use those ones that are kind of, they have like the round handle, don't you? Or somebody does here. I've seen them.
We use the bunt pan thing.
Tell us about that. What does that look like? Or how do you
It
do
basically looks like a bunt pan with a lid, and in the center, the bees can crawl up, and then there's it's like a cup that sits on top of it that keeps them from getting down into the sugar water and drowning. And usually the inner covers, it's got the round hole, it's perfect. You can just set it on there. And if you get back often enough, the bees won't get out, and so you can feed the bees without disturbing them. And
That works pretty good. It goes right over the hole in your cover.
yeah, it works really good. And like if you've got double nukes, I figured a way that you can stagger them and actually fit the two of them into the space of the double nukes. So you can actually get those in that space.
That's pretty neat. So yeah, there's a lot of options for feeding. There's some people use baggies, and some baggies really make me nervous personally, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. So definitely research that and find out what works best for you, because what works best for me may not be the best solution for you. And that's the last time I'm going to say that. If you do use the frame feeders, what I will say is invest in those ladders. It's like a piece of, looks like needlepoint stuff that goes down the middle of it. And then it goes into a cap on there. So those will definitely help your bees not drown. I've seen a lot of other ways to do it where they'll take a piece of window screen, like old metal window screen, and they'll bend it in there just so the bees got something to hang on to. Those are kind of corrugated on the inside, most of them, so that the bees can get onto it. But I just found that without them ladders or without a piece of screen in there, I really get a lot of dead bees in there, and I got to clean it all out. It just takes me more time than it's worth. And obviously, I don't want to kill my bees. So let's see here.
Farm and Fleet has the 2-gallon bee bucket feeder for $9.99.
Wow, there you go. So that looks like a small pail, and it's got a lid that snaps on it real tight. It's probably got a food grade seal on there too. So the big thing is you can make these yourself. You can get a frosting bucket from Casey's. Just gave up my source. You can get them from any of the places that make donuts. That's going to be your best place to make cakes or those kinds of things. And actually, you can buy a lid that goes on it and has that little thing on there. You can buy those things and actually plastic weld. There's a lot of options, but basically there's a lid in there with a bunch of little holes on the inside. And what you do is you snap that on tight and you flip it over with your syrup off of the hive until it draws a vacuum and it won't drip. Then you can put that over the hole in your inner cover. So keep in mind though, when you're using gravity feed systems like that with vacuum, if that vacuum breaks, it's going to drown your bees. And then the other thing that's going to happen is in the cold, when we go cold, warm, that'll actually push some liquid out because it'll expand and contract a bit because of the temperature swing. So your result may vary. Definitely experiment a little bit with it. Put one on the sidewalk out in front of your house and see what happens, right? Make sure you got a good vacuum on there, especially if you're building them yourself. You might think you have a good vacuum and then go out and look and you don't have any syrup in that or water in that bucket in an hour. So if you would have put that on your bees, you would have just drowned them all. So
That's the nice thing about the bunt pan thing is you don't deal with vacuum. And then I usually on top of it, I put that, last spring I put that foam on top, and late this fall and put 2-inch foam on top to help keep it warm.
Sure. That's a great idea. If you're using a super heavy feeder, sometimes you want to get a shim in between your inner covers because it can actually make them bow down. Just a thought. So once you start feeding, here's the deal. Once you start feeding 1-to-1, you can't stop. So they're dependent on you 100%. So it's like getting a new puppy or a baby or whatever you want to assimilate it to. There's work that has to go into it. So you gotta maintain that. So once you start feeding, you cannot stop until they have enough natural source. So I can't say that enough. So keep in mind what happens in the spring, right? We just talked about it with the black locust trees. Is right when things look good, it rains. And it rains for like 3 weeks straight. So during that time, they can't forage. So you could have flowers all over the place. If it's raining, there's no nectar in there. It's washed it out. So those bees are going to starve during that time if you don't feed. So when I started, I was like, man, I'm not going to put anything in my hives. I'm going to be 100% natural. I'm not going to feed. I want the bees to do what bees are supposed to do and all that, and I really cripple them doing that. So definitely make sure you're providing them with feed, and don't stop until they have enough adequate sources. And how do you know if they have enough sources? Anyone? How do you know if they're getting enough feed? Anybody?
Well, they'll stop taking the syrup. I mean,
So that's one thing. So Polly said that you'll stop seeing them take the syrup, so you won't have to fill them as often. What else? How else would you know that they're getting enough feed?
Watch the bees come and go.
Watch them coming and going. What else would you see?
White wax.
Perhaps white wax. Yep. You're missing a really big one here. All right, so you're inspecting your bees, right? You're checking your bees. You should be inside of those hives, checking them when you got a nice day. You should be looking, and you'll see wet cells. You'll see larvae that are nice. They'll have lots of royal jelly in them. You'll see nectar put up. You'll see all that stuff, and hopefully you'll see if you're feeding too much, because we also want to make sure that they don't get filled up with too much. Another thing to keep into account is that if you start feeding them and stimulating them, for example, right now, if you'd have done that last weekend, they'd have taken a bunch of feed, and she'd have started laying eggs, and then we got 11 degrees coming, I think, tonight or tomorrow, something like that. It's going to be in the low teens. So all that brood would have probably chilled, which, I mean, you're killing bees, which is obviously bad, but you're also hindering the bees because they're going to put all these resources into doing that. Then they're going to tear it all out and throw it out of the hive. So keep that in mind, that you kind of got to pay attention to the weather, long-term weather forecast. You got to make sure you got enough bees. So if you're opening your lid and you got a ton of bees in there, you might be able to gamble a little bit more than if you have like a fistful. Like we have a carniolan colony, they might be wintering with a cluster that big. Where like an Italian might have a basketball inside of there. So your results may vary. Let's see. So did I skip that? All right, so when to split. So I hear this from a lot of people. People are asking me right now, can I buy queens when I get my packages so I can split my old colonies? So this is where you got to decide what you want to do. What's your goals as a beekeeper? Is your goals to put up a bunch of bees, or is your goal to put up a bunch of honey, or a combination of both? So the answers to those will say how you want to maintain your bees and how you want to grow them. So if you want to put up a bunch of bees, you can split in the spring. If you want to put up a bunch of honey, you definitely do not want to split in the spring, because you're going to take half those resources of bees to make another colony. Hopefully that's as light as you're going to go. Keep in mind, if you're going to make a split in the spring, you got to put a bunch of bees in there to keep that warm. So they're going to need more resources to keep that larva warm on those cold nights. So you don't want to go make 2-frame splits. Even 3-frame splits are pretty risky until you get to the end of April. So just I've seen it before. I went out and helped one of my Amish friends, one of his neighbors. We went through about 40 hives where he made 2-frame splits, and they were all chilled out. So he pretty much lost all those bees. So that pretty much made him go bust that year. So you want to definitely make strong splits if you're making them early. So you need lots of bees to gather nectar. So remember, it takes a lot of resources to go out and gather that nectar, but more importantly, it takes a lot of resources to grow more bees. So I forget what the number is. We had a workshop for the Illinois Queen Initiative. I want to say it was about 13,000 visits it takes from the time the egg hatches to the time that bee emerges. It's like 13,000 visits to that bee in that process. So in those 21 days. So that's a crazy amount of resources it takes to do that. So if that queen starts dropping the hammer and laying, 1,500 to 2,000 eggs, you got to have enough resources to be able to maintain those larvae during that time. So they got to be fed and maintained and warm during that. So you got to keep those two things in mind. So that's why I say if you want to raise honey, you want to split later in the season. But if you want to raise bees, then you can think about splitting in the spring. All right, so my opinion here is that if you're going to make your splits regardless, you might as well make them during the dirt. So might as well make some honey, even if you want to put up a bunch of bees. Might as well make a bunch of honey and make your splits when the bees want to be split. So your bees are going to get swarmy, why not use that to your advantage and make your own queens? So as long as there's enough bees nearby for them to get mated up and stuff like that, it's worth a gamble. If you get a bad queen, you can buy one from somebody else later on. But I say make them when bees want to be split. So when they're getting swarmy, that's when I like to split myself. So I like to split during the dearth. I usually personally, I pull honey in July-ish, mostly because I get a day off of work. And because that's about when things are tapering down, I'm usually running out of equipment and all that stuff. So that's usually when I do it. And my goal here is not to have a fall flow. I let the bees have a fall flow, and I split hard in July personally. So that may not work for you, but just think about that. Let the bees do what the bees want to do. So when they want to start making queen cells and stuff like that, and they're going to do that when they're full of resources, when food is right, and the time is right, and it's usually warm. You don't have to worry about those cold nights, all that stuff. So the bees kind of tell you when to do this. So don't overthink it, and don't get step on your own feet there. Let's see here. So if you see the cells, my motto is it's like blackjack, 2 queens, you split. All right, so how would you be preventing swarming? Hopefully you're doing those inspections. So I have on there, personally for me, I won't pull frames out of a hive until it's over 55 degrees. Warmer the better. 55 is even kind of iffy. You better be pretty snappy at 55, personally. You could crack a box, lift it up, and look for queen cells. Look for how many bees are inside of that colony, that kind of thing. I probably wouldn't take every frame out and look it over real close and look for larvae and try to find your queens. Just personally at 55 degrees. But, into the 60s, you could probably definitely do that. Joe, when do you start going through your stuff?
Yeah, 60 probably.
That's a safe bet because you don't want them to get chilled. So if they get chilled, that larva is going to die and they're going to tear it out and throw it outside of the hive and you're going to start over. So we don't want to kill bees whenever possible, right? So when we're doing our inspections, one of the big, and we have a whole meeting to go over how to do an inspection, but everybody always says, you talk about doing these inspections, but I have no idea what I'm looking at when I go do my inspections. So we're going to go through that. But for this part, what we're doing is we're looking at, we want to see those hives growing. We want to see our numbers increase. We want to see that the hives are strong and that our bees look healthy. Once it starts getting warm, you might want to do some mite counts, maybe think about mite treatments, all that stuff. Those are what should be done in your inspections. One of the big things is as you're doing all this feeding, we want to also make sure that they're not getting honey bound. So what that means is they'll fill that cluster down in their hive body, they'll fill that up with nectar or honey or syrup, whatever, and they'll fill up all the room that queen needs to lay eggs. So that's a bad thing too, because they'll feel cramped and then they'll want to start swarming. So we want to make sure that that's not happening. And if it is, we have to manipulate some frames. So we might have to move those full frames out to the side, move those ones on the ends that they haven't touched into the cluster, all that stuff. So I just said move them into the cluster. We want to be careful of doing that until it's warm at night. So if it's going to be below, I'd say 50, 60 degrees at night, I would go real easy splitting that cluster. Matter of fact, I usually don't do it until I know the nights are solid in the 60s personally. So it's really not worth it to me to lose bees during that time. You can experiment with what you like, but I don't want to kill bees. So once it's warm, you can take those frames that they're not working and put them in the middle of that cluster and they'll draw them out real nice. Because a lot of times your outside frames, they won't touch. That is a good reason to run the A-frame hardware, especially A-frame mediums, is they'll work almost every square inch. I've seen them anyways. Let's see. So the other things you want to do is you want to flip your boxes once those nighttime temperatures come up. Again, I usually don't flip my boxes until it's in the 50s at night, stable. A lot of people flip them earlier than that. I just don't want things to get chilled. So the bees are up top because that's usually where the feed is, but they're also up there because it's not as cold and drafty. So keep those things in mind. And also in the spring, it's usually raining, usually damp, all that stuff. So they can manage that upper part a little easier. But once it starts getting warm at night, you can go ahead and flip those boxes. When I do, I'll have extra bottom boards. So that's a good reason to have some extra gear around. They'll just take and I'll pull my old board off to the side. I'll put a spare one down, and I'll put my highs back on. And then when I'm done, I'll scrape that old board clean, and I'll use that one for my next one. So I just kind of rotate through my gear. But I want to make sure I'm cleaning all the dead bees and all the cappings and all the junk that's in there, the occasional mouse nests, all those types of things.
This is my first full year, right? So I just wondered, I've got 2 hives. I have 2 beeps on one of them and single on the other. So the one that has 2 beeps, I've got a flare at work. So I used that, and I can tell that all of the bees are in the upper hive. Is there any benefit for taking out that bottom deep, setting it down, and cleaning up the bottom deep, or does that help the bees stay warm by removing the bottom deep?
So once the nights are warm, I'll put the box with the bees at the bottom, and then I'll put the empty one on top of it, so that they have room to move up. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I was wondering if it is beneficial for me right now, just take that bottom deep and pull it out and.
No, I would leave these just the way they are right now. I wouldn't be cracking boxes apart and doing all that stuff. Personally, for me anyways, I don't like to do that because I might have a cluster that spreads boxes, and I don't want to kill them when I do that because it's going to chill them. I'm going to break that brood nest, and I don't want to do that now when it's cold. So just leave them alone, let them build up. Sometimes they don't even need the boxes flipped. You'll see the queen will go right back down there and lay it up. Sometimes laziness works off for me.
Could you repeat that? His question a little louder, because I don't know if all.
Yeah, so what his question was is he might have an extra box on there, or should he move those boxes earlier? And I said I probably wouldn't break that cluster, because occasionally the bees might be a little bit into that other box. So when you flip those boxes, they right now they may even already have some larvae in there and stuff like that with these warm weekends that we've had. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a little brood nest inside some of them. Who knows? Especially depending on the breed, you might see different results. So I would still leave them alone yet. I usually don't like flipping boxes until into April personally. Joe, when do you usually do it?
Probably about that time.
Like mid-April?
Yeah.
So probably you go for that nighttime temp, is that how you do it?
Yeah, 50s, 60s.
Yeah, so the reason why I said is once I move those bees down, keep in mind that's where the big entrance is. So it might be a little more drafty and stuff like that, and I don't want to have chilled brood from that. So I usually wait until the temps are mild. And also, you get that cool spell, occasionally a mouse will run in there again. So just something to keep in mind. But right now is a good time to go through and find all your boxes that are dead outs, get them cleaned up. They're way easier to clean when it's cold out. So when it's cold, you can bang the boxes and most of the bees will fall out of the comb real easy. They're a lot more tough. Once they get gooey, it gets hard to clean those boxes out. So do it right now. It's nice and easy to scrape propolis, nice and easy to scrape fur comb off and stuff like that. Clean your dados out in your in your boxes. Now is the time to be doing it, especially before you need the box. Let's see here. So I like to clean that bottom board. I was saying I like to clean all the dead bees off of there and the cappings and the occasional mouse shenanigans that might have happened in there. Whatever. I've had them literally chew through the corners of my hives, even though I got mouse guards on. I hate mines. Let's see here. Make sure you super early and often. This is something that I always say, but I never did because I was always short on hardware. One thing I had a bunch of old timers tell me this, and it's really good advice, is make your bees work. So always challenge your bees. So if you think you need one box, probably put 2 on. Now that said, for the people that are new and don't have drawn comb, a little different story because they got to draw out all that comb. But if you got drawn comb supers and you got a good flow starting, put 2 boxes on if you think you need 1. So once that flow starts, you can put your clean excluders on and then throw your shippers on. If you're in a clean excluders, you can do that. One of the things about flipping boxes, and I thought maybe this is where you're going with it, is like for me, I'll leave a super on there And everybody kind of panics and they say, whoa, what do I do? Because I got a medium and all the bees are in medium. The bees don't care. I heard him say it on Saturday, and I thought the way he said it was really good is the bees don't know what a super is and the bees don't know what a high body is. They don't care. So everything's the same to them. So they'll move through whatever. So you can move that medium down to the bottom and put your deep on top of it. They'll move up. And once you know that queen's in that deep, you can put that above a queen excluder and let her emerge out, or let all those bees emerge out and let them fill out the honey too. So it's kind of, even if you don't use queen excluders, it's kind of nice to have one around for those situations. I've become a believer now in queen excluders. I finally had success with them. And I think part of the reason was I just didn't have strong enough colonies and enough drawn comb above them for them to move into, just because I was always trying to skimp on hardware. But when I did do that, I saw good results with it, and it really makes it easy to pull honey that way. Let's see, so if you do double super on there, you want to make sure you got enough bees to be able to patrol that area, or you might get on the wrong side of some pests. So keep that in mind.
A request for you to be a little louder,
Okay, back here.
from online.
Oh, gotcha. Probably because I'm not facing the TV where the microphone is.
Okay.
So I'm trying to split between both sides. So maybe next time I'll put a speaker there to pick up. All right, so we said a lot of things here that we were doing. You're gonna hear my pitch. I say this every time I talk, every time I teach, always take notes, and we never do. So if you don't take notes, you don't know when the black book is bloomed. You don't take notes, you don't know when the dandelions came on. If you don't take notes, you don't know when the dogwoods came on. You don't know when the XYZ, right? So unless you take notes, you can't remember what you did when. So my Amish friend has a book of probably 30-something years of every year when everything bloomed. So he'll have the date, he'll have the temperatures, all that stuff. And I think now he splits it with his wife. She likes doing it too. So they have a book of all this stuff, and he can tell you, when it's happened each year. So it's pretty interesting stuff. So that kind of helps you prep for next year. And it really helps you if you move into a new apiary, or maybe you haven't been watching it for the year. So as you guys are expanding or going to a new spot, or maybe you moved houses or something like that, sometimes it's a whole different adventure in a different spot. So if you don't take notes, you'll never know these things. So lots of different ways to take notes. I use the Amish method, as I call it. Again, Marlon taught me that. Taught me a lot of things. What I do is I just write with a Sharpie right on the lid. And at the end of the year, I'll roll it with paint, and I'll start over. So I usually take a picture of it with my phone, and I'll put it in Excel just for my records. But I'll maintain every time I inspect the hive, I'll write it on the lid. So for the most part. Let's see here. So what we want to log is when did the bloom start, what the temperatures were, what did you do when. So when did you add those supers, how many supers did you add, so that next year you can change your game plan or keep the same game plan if it worked out really well. But more importantly, it'll help you correlate the events of what happened to what you should be doing with your hives. Let's see here. So usually during the wintertime, we recommend having an upper entrance, just in case you get snow or you get something blocking it or whatever, dead bees over that entrance. If you have an upper entrance, they can get out through there. I run an upper entrance all the time on my hives. I feel that it really helps with moisture and stuff like that too. So I always have upper entrances going all year, not just winter. Another thing I do is when I take my entrance reducer off, is another old timer trick I learned, is I set it right underneath that telescoping cover. Even if I don't run an inner cover, I'll just lay it on there, and that'll hold that lid up a little bit and help them with ventilation. It really helps in the wintertime, but more so it helps me not lose it. So that was really good too.
With the upper entrance, do you put the upper entrance between the super and the hive body, or do you go all the way to the top?
Yeah, so there's these, they're called shims. What is it called? Emery shim in there. I've had bad results with those personally, but I know others that swear by them. Your results may vary. My friend Crosby, he actually drills holes in all of his supers, and he'll put duct tape over them when he wants them closed. I've seen other guys, Marlon puts corks in his. I've seen a lot of different methods of doing that. On my nukes, I just have a piece of steel that I screw on there, or a tuna lid, or a pop top, or something like that. Whatever I find to cover it up works good. There's a lot of ways to do that. What I found when I run those shims is they work great. The bees can get in and out there, but they'll fill that gap up with comb and just make a mess out of it. And then I'll go pull a super off of there and I'll put it on my stack and I'll smash honey all over everything. And then I get bees interested in that honey. And now I got more bees in my boxes that I just blew out with the leaf blower that's going to become illegal and all that stuff. So yeah, so there's a whole thing there. So for me, I don't use those shims between my supers. I know other people that have great results with it. I don't know what their secrets are, but I would say experiment. You know, don't take my word for it. If anybody tells you there's one way to do anything, I would probably walk away. Let's see here. Certain things I'll say one. Balance your hives. So this is another thing during your inspections. You should always be balancing your hives. If I've heard this once, I've heard it probably 1,000 times. I see it on Facebook page. I've even stopped responding to it because it aggravates me so much. Is I'll hear somebody say, I got one strong hive and I got this other weak hive, or I got 3 strong hives, but I got this one hive that's weak. And there's no excuse for that. Because I hear everybody say, oh my God, I had such a rotting problem. It killed out my one hive and all this stuff happened. And if you balance out your hives, you won't have these types of issues. So if your hives are all equal, you won't have one weak one and a bunch of strong ones to beat up the weak one.
I apologize for last summer.
You weren't the only one, man. And I'm sorry I bugged you so much, but I kind of get tired of saying it over and over and over. But I think what the reason is I don't really explain why that's so important. So I want to go back to the other slide where I said how many resources it takes to grow bees. So like when I make splits, I will never make a split. I shouldn't say never, but I will rarely ever make a split less than 3 frames. So I'll take a frame of dark brood, or sometimes 2 frames of dark brood and a frame of eggs and larvae. Is usually how I do my splits. And I do that specifically for resources. I want one frame that's super duper dark, ready to emerge in the next couple of days, because those workers are going to go right to work and start drawing comb on those 2 brand new frames I got in there. And then they're going to also be the ones that are producing wax. They're going to be the ones producing royal jelly. They're going to be the caretakers for all the young that I want that queen to start laying all those eggs. So it's really important to figure out the math, right? So you have to understand how many bees it takes to make bees. So a lot of people, they'll try and skim light and they'll try and do 2 frame splits. And they say, wow, it took forever for that hive to grow up and build strong. There's some situations maybe you want to do that, but let's not get into that. You want to make sure you have enough bees to make bees to take care of them. So it's really important to do that. So you want to always balance out your hives. And probably the next question, I'm going to come to you in a minute, is like, oh my God, can I take bees from this hive and put it in this other hive? I've read in all the books they're going to fight and they're going to kill each other. If you take a frame of nurse bees, they won't fight. And if you take a frame of nurse bees, they don't know where their old house is to fly back. If you take a frame of foragers, they're going to fly right back to that other hive. So you want to take a frame that's just emerging out or getting ready to emerge out and put that in your weak hive to make it strong. So keep in mind, a deep frame, I call it a bee bomb. It's about what, 7,000 bees are going to come out of that. So that's a game changer. She's like a package of bees is what, 3,000 bees, somewhere in that neighborhood. So you're basically dumping a package of bees and 2 packages of bees in the hive, right? So big deal when you do that. It'll really change your. And I know a lot of you have seen it. Is you finally listened to me and gave it a try. You're like, wow, it made a big difference. And my hive really did grow up strong. I'm sorry, you had a question first.
Well, it was kind of along the same line. So when you're
I
making
know
a
you guys
split,
experiment a lot.
yeah, when you're making a split, you really don't care about foragers, do you? I mean, that's the whole move it 3 miles, bring it back business.
I never take foragers in my. I
Never
shouldn't say
have
never,
either.
because there's always going to be some foragers on your frames. If I ideally, which I never have, because I'm usually working bees after I get home from work, but if you have like the weekends and stuff like that, I'll make my splits if I can during the day when most of the foragers are out, and I'll take those frames with that are ready to emerge, and I'll take the frames that are larva, because there's gonna be nurse bees working that larva. So there's gonna be some foragers in there, and they will migrate back, but if you put a frame of dark bees in there, the dark brood, it's gonna emerge and give you a ton of nurse.
So a split isn't
It doesn't matter.
necessarily a 50-50 split.
You figure out how to do that, I'd be interested, but actually I might not, because I'm probably not gonna put the.
You'd have to move them and then bring them back.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
you'd have to do it at night.
even moving them,
And
I
it's
still
not-
find I lose the bees. So I don't know, I kind of gave up on that. So when I make my splits, I'll take a frame of dark brood, or a frame of, maybe 2 frames of dark brood, it depends what I got. But I'm gonna get a frame of mixed brood and larva, and a frame of eggs, and that's how I make it. 3 frames total. I don't even worry about feed, because I'm gonna put feeder on. If I ever make a split, I always feed, period. But
Okay, John,
anyways,
you have
that's a
a
whole
question
nother
over
topic.
So if you're looking for nurse bees, like you go in there during the day and you look for the open brood on a frame, and you smooth the whole frame in there or shake them off that frame.
I move the whole frame bees. So as a matter of fact, I was gonna come to that next. So usually that's the question everybody asks, is if I take this frame from one hive and put it in the other, I'll make some pheromones and all this other stuff. Yeah, I mean, once in a blue moon, you'll get some issues from it. You might hear them sizzle a little bit for a minute until they work it all out, but if you're really nervous about it, you can take a spray bottle with a little bit of honeybee healthy and some syrup and spray it down, and they don't get the smaller pheromones anyways, but honestly, you're not gonna have trouble with it for the most part. But I will take the frame with bees and move them over there. I've never really been super successful with taking the frame and shaking them, because it seems like every time I do that, I get more foragers and they just go back to that other hive. But keep in mind, nurse bees have never flown, so they've never done that orientation flight, so they don't know what home is. They're just gonna think that that's their house.
I can, and as long as they're attention. We talk about robbing issues. So how far apart are the bees? Like, they become less interested in each other the more far apart they are. Right?
It's like a religious politics question. My bees are like, I keep them fairly close. I will if I can move them around a little bit, but I don't worry about saying I gotta have this much space. I have them on pallets, or I got 4 on a pallet. I don't know. I mean, ideally, yeah, I'd space them out perfectly and do all that stuff, but bees are gonna find food, whether you hide it or not. They got a better nose than you do for it. So I mean, it's their life right now. It's your hobby, so they're gonna go find it.
Okay, would they go out, half a mile to rob another hive?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You guys, Brian Flick, his got stripped out, I think 2 or 3 years. So it happens a lot. So if you keep things strong, you're not gonna have as much trouble with robbing. You'll still have robbing during that time of year. And when they're in a dearth, sometimes moving frames and stuff back and forth, it might get a little more exciting than other times. But if you're taking a frame of dark brood, if you're nervous about it, shake the bees off and put that frame of dark brood in there. You'll be all right with it. Let's see, where was I here? So yeah, keep your hives equaled out. So now that said, you might be buying some packages. And you're gonna put some packages in next to some strong hives. Keep your interest reduced around there so they can manage that small entrance. You'll be okay there. But once things get going, and you got good broodness and stuff like that, kind of equal it out. There's no reason why you can't give that package a frame of dark brood from your strong colony. It'll be a game changer. You'll see them explode. I mean, absolutely explode. Let's see here. So use your swarm.
So, Mr. Pimp,
Yes.
when you do that split, is that 3 deeps, and is that like 5 mediums or 3 mediums, or does it matter if it's a deep or medium?
Yeah, that's a good question. When it's cold, I would probably do 4 or 5 medium frames. If it's not cold, you probably get away with 3 medium frames. It depends. And so that's another good question. It depends what you're splitting them into. Personally, I always put splits in a nuke. Always put them into a nuke because I feel that they can manage that space a lot better. So I like 5 frame nukes personally. So I'll do 3 frames of bees in the middle, and then I'll put a new frame on the outside, and they'll draw that up pretty quick usually, especially with the double and triple wax. That's a game changer. I don't think I'll ever use. I shouldn't say never, but I don't think I'll ever use the non-heavy wax. So it's definitely a big difference. I put 3 frame splits and put a frame of regular man lake and a frame of Pureco piece of plastic heavy wax on there, and they had probably 3/4 of that frame drawn in 24 hours. It was nuts, with just a 3-frame split. So they'll really get at it. It was on a 4, but in there being frame, but they'll get after it and they'll really build up strong. So yeah, I like to split into nukes. I feel they can manage that space better. They can manage their warmth, and that'll make a big difference as to how fast they build and grow. So even when I start packages, I'll start packages in a 5-frame nuke, because I just find that they really respond a lot better, because they're not trying to maintain that whole box. So does that answer your question, Tom? I'll say yes. So this is a big
I was
one.
going to say yes, but I couldn't unmute.
Right. I figured silence means you're good. So this is one that I always struggle with. I do as I say, not as I do. Is hardware, because I'm usually broke in the spring, all kinds of other things. So I rarely ever have hardware when I need it. I beg you to get extra hardware now so that you have it. I would probably at least have an extra hot body, at least have an extra medium. If you do all mediums, you don't have to worry about all that, because everything's a hot body, everything's a super. So that is a good thing there, but have some extra gear laying around. I would at least have an extra deep bottom board and a lid, just in case you get a swarm or you gotta make a split or something like that. Maybe have a nuke laying around too. I think you're starting to make nukes.
Yep. You're racking up that commission, Tom. Good job. Yeah.
What commission? Wait a minute. So, yeah, that's have that extra gear. Get it together now. Not to turn this into a hardware building workshop, but type on 2 or the blue or the green label. Green is better, it's expensive. The green is waterproof, blue is water resistant. Glue and nail or screw or both. You'll see a big difference there. Probably should let you talk about that, but definitely glue and screw or nail all your boxes. Get them painted. Take that time to get 2-3 coats of paint on them. You'll really see the difference later on with your boxes, because once you start with these, you're not going to be able to give it up. I pretty much guarantee you, or you'll get frustrated. But you'll really get into it, and you'll want those boxes to be around. And boxes are really expensive now. I just can't believe how much they keep climbing every single year. And Man Lake just raised the prices actually as of last week. So buy local, I guess is the word there. So have extra frames. That's also a good thing to have. You got extra frames, you can swap things around. It just gives you a lot of options to be able to equal out your hives. So right now is probably a good time. Might even be, who knows? Who knows what the weather's going to do? I guess if you'd have done it yesterday, or sorry, Sunday, you'd be in really good shape. But now's a good time to frost seed some stuff. What that means is you can broadcast it on the ground. The snow is going to come and it's going to freeze, and it's going to actually set it into the dirt. So it's kind of like drilling, but without having to have a drill to do it. So it's a really good way if you got a spot that's bare, or you want to supplement some things. Think about things that are going to bloom there in the dirt. That's a big deal too. So xerces.org, xerces.org, xerces.org has really good resources on there about your region, soil type, moisture content. More importantly, it'll show you what plants that will grow in your area, what produces pollen, what produces nectar, and I think it even gives approximate bloom times so that you can plan for that July, August dearth. So your bees will really appreciate that. And it's also a good time to put down some stuff now to come up in the spring to be able to suppress weeds if you're going to plant something good later. For example, if you got into the Monarch program, or you're going to put in CRP, that's a good time to put down something to suppress the weeds. That's called cover cropping. Sarah's got probably the best book in the business on it. Start building if you haven't already. So that means make sure things are painted while you got some time and all that stuff. Talk about that. All right. So for all those of you that said that you're just getting started this year, so what do you got to do? So out of those people that started, who's brand new? First year of the week, who was not in our class that had, you all were in the class. So we kind of talk about this, we go through it in the class. I'm still going to try to get something together here in March. I'm just trying to figure out the weekend to do it. But we can get something together to get you guys ramped up. It might be an abbreviated version, but I'll get you some training there. But so hopefully you got your bees ordered. Shameless plug for myself. I sell packages and I sell nukes. Make sure you have them ordered. Talk with other people about it. Don't take my word for it. My bees are really, really fresh. I drive down. I get them from a friend of mine several years now. He runs 10,000 hives strictly for packages. He doesn't put them on almonds. So they're strictly raised for packages and that's it. Packages and queen rearing, that's it. So you don't go on trucks and get migrated around and all that stuff. So he'll shake in the morning that I pick them up. So literally I get there as they're coming out of the field and we'll load them onto the trailer. I drive home all night and you guys come to my house like an hour or two after I get home. So that's when I hand out the bees. So a lot of times they haven't even been in a cage for 24 hours. And that makes a big difference. So they will build up quick. So anyways, get your bees ordered. I don't know how far off I am from selling out, but it's probably getting close. Nukes I might be just about sold out on. So definitely get after that or find somebody else to buy from. I would say if you're going to buy from whoever, ask around others who they've had good or bad luck with and make sure that that's who you're ordering or not ordering from. Let's see here. So again, same things, get your gear ready and all that stuff, get things painted, get things out there. Really scratch your head a little bit about where you're putting your bees. Make sure you're not going to put them somewhere that's going to flood. So if you're not putting them on your ground, you're putting them on somebody else's place, sit down, bring some coffee over or beer, whatever your landowner's into, and sit down and talk with them and say, I'm thinking about this spot. Is this a really good spot? Does it flood in the spring? Like what happens in this spot? Does this have a lot of deer traffic? What's going on here that I might want to be aware of? So, kind of make sure you got a good spot. Because that spot you might think is really good might get really wet until probably May. So like I had a spot that I wanted to put bees and it's usually underwater until probably late April. So just kind of keep that in mind. There was one of the guys here locally put like 40 hives in and had them all flooded out and we had a big rain like 4 years ago. So definitely pay real close attention to that. Don't put them in the obvious spots along a creek or in a low spot there. Sometimes it's not as obvious. So that's what I'm saying. Definitely ask the landowner that you're putting stuff on, is this spot stay wet? Does this have trouble? And that's for two reasons. Number one is obviously you don't want your bees flooded, but number two, you want to make sure that you'll be able to get to your bees. So I'm lazy and or trying to be efficient about my time. So I want to be able to pull right up to my hives with my truck and be able to pick stuff up out of my truck and put it right by the bees. I don't want to carry stuff a quarter mile or half mile into my bees. Even with a four-wheeler, it's still a pain to go do. And more importantly, you're really going to irritate your landowner if it's not your ground, or if it's your ground, you're going to irritate yourself. But you're really going to rut it up in the spring trying to get in and out of it. So I would pick high, dry ground. Worst case, you can always move your bees later on, to a better spot for the winter, and then move them back up in the summer. So the bees don't really care about that stuff. So scout your locations, ask those questions, spend the time now. It'll pay big dividends. Make sure you get all your stuff put together, get your hardware orders in, whatever, that kind of stuff. Read, ask questions, shake hands here. So all the people that had bees that made it through the winter, raise your hands. All right, keep your hands up. Everybody look around. These are the people you want to ask to go work bees with. So after the meeting, go shake hands. Go say, hey, can I come play with your bees? Can I help you put hardware together? Can I come talk? Can I bring a 6-pack of beer over and talk? Can we go get coffee or whatever? Can I pick your brain and learn some things, right? So do that. Don't take advantage of that. And don't just pick one person, pick 3 or 4, because you're going to learn something good and something bad from each person. And the way I work bees may not work for you, or it may work for you. Who knows? Get as much experience as you can. YouTube, go easy on. I love YouTube. I'm a YouTube junkie. I probably need a support group for it. And it's all nerd stuff. I swear you, no cat videos for me. But there's so much good stuff out there, but you do have to sort through a bunch of crap to get to it. There's a lot of really good ones like Barnyard Bees, University of Guelph, we mentioned. They're probably one of my favorites that's out there. Their stuff might be a little more advanced for you, but what's Billy? I always want to say
Billy Davis.
I always want to say Billy Gibbons. Billy Davis. Billy Gibbons.
Billy
ZZ Top.
Kevin Reynolds is another good one.
Yeah, so Billy Davis, his stuff is really, really good. I like his style. I like that he's calm. I like he's kind of lazy about how he does it. Like he works very efficiently with what he's doing. So instead of lifting boxes and moving things, he's very purposeful about his actions. There's a lot of really good stuff out there. JZBs? I like his stuff quite a bit. Sometimes he's hard to understand. He's got a thick Southern accent. He doesn't have a mic near him a lot of times, but he's got a lot to teach there. Good things, but ask questions from people. Learn about that stuff. Learn as much as you can. That's pretty much what I got. Questions? Anything? All that perfectly cool? Yes.
So I have 2 hives, I'm going to be adding 4 because of resources that I'm able to, right? And then so when you put the packages in there, what can I do to help them draw out comb faster?
So, and we can go around the room. Anybody that's got ideas here, feel free to jump in. For me, what I do is I give them one box. I put them in one box. I start all my packages in nukes personally. So I put them in there just because they can build fast. If I had some dead outs, I'll take some of that clean comb that's left over from that dead out just to get them ahead so she can start laying as soon as she's out of the cage. Because they'll polish all that up and clean things. Personally, for me, if my stuff's moldy, if it smells bad, if it's not, it's gonna sound really bad. If I don't want to take that frame and lick my tongue down it, it goes in the burn pile.
Okay.
So if it smells, if it's funky, anything like that, and you're like, wow, that's really expensive. That's a $3 frame. But you just crippled your bees by making them clean, right? So they got to go through all those mold spores. They got to clean all that stuff out when they should be building wax and making comb and doing all those things. So it's a penny wise, $1 foolish. I would say buy some heavy frames, heavy coated frames, and put new frames in there. If there's stuff that's bad, if it's it's covered in mouse pee and all that stuff, it goes in a burn pile. If it has mold on it, more than just a little touch on there, it goes in a burn pile for me. I'm pretty aggressive about that stuff. I burned a whole bunch of equipment one time from disease and stuff, and I learned a lesson right there. So I go easy on that. So I want a small box to put the package into. They will build up faster, and then when they're strong, I'll move them into, for me, I run deeps, but you can move that into, whatever kind of boxes you're gonna run. So if you're gonna run all mediums, you wanna make sure you order a medium nuke from whoever you're gonna buy from. If you're running deeps, you want a deep nuke. Sometimes you forget about that. A lot of people order nukes and they're like, wait a minute, I had all medium gear. We were just talking about that before the meeting. So make sure who you're buying your nukes from. You tell them that you want to run medium nukes or you want to shoot nukes. All that stuff like that. But I start them in one box and then I'll let them build. I'll kind of manipulate frames as I can based on the weather. And sometimes you got to help them out. Sometimes they don't want to draw them out, especially if you're running 10 frame boxes. This is good sell for 8 frame boxes, right? They rarely ever want to work that outside frame. So as soon as they start to get honeybound, I'll move those frames to the outside, and then I'll move those empties next to the cluster if it's cold. If it's warm or hot, I'll move them right in the middle of the cluster. Sometimes, like in July, I'll put 2 or 3 frames right in the middle of that cluster if it's a strong column. So that's an experience thing you're gonna learn. So I'll run like one box and let them build up. So I manage their space. I'll make it tight until they run out of room, and then I'll give them more space as they need. And once they get to 7-ish frames, then I'll put an excluder on and put my zippers on. And then, right, personally, I run now all single deeps, and I'll run double mediums on them with a clean excluder. So I'm hoping to switch all my stuff over to wood bound metal excluders this year. Because I found for me, I feel like the plastic clean excluders, even though they were $4, really cost me a lot of honey. It probably cost me a super of honey, just because going through them, I feel that it shreds the bees up pretty good too. I see the damage on their wings and stuff. I don't know, it could be crazy. I might just think I see it, but it seems like they really get shredded by it. So I'm going all metal excluders now, wood bound.
That's the nice thing about having the upper entrance. You train them for the upper entrance, they avoid that clean excluder altogether.
Right. And the other thing I like about the metal excluders is I can just take a torch with a wide flame on it and melt off any of that wax on there and releasing it instead of having to sit there and try and clean it all out. Because when they get on a strong flow, sometimes that'll get all hoovered up with honey. So you want to make sure that they can get in and out through there. Make things as efficient as possible, right? So don't make things harder on your bees. What else? I saw another hand back there somewhere.
I was gonna suggest that since he's got 3 boxes, right, you have 2 on one hive and one another, grab a frame that's already drawn out from those and put them in his new,
Exactly.
in your new packages so that the queen can start laying immediately. And that will also prompt them to start drawing comb more.
Yeah, I mean, I'd even throw
Feed
them
like crazy.
I'd even throw in a drawn super. Just to give them, if that's all the drawn comb I got, I'd throw them in there and let them start. Just, it makes a big difference. Take 8 pounds of honey and make 1 pound of wax. So it's a huge amount of labor. So if you got gear already, buy some wax and go to the Goodwill store and buy a crock pot and melt it in there and then just paint it on.
Yeah, my assumption is on the 2 box at the bottom one was drawn out and empty.
Should be.
That's my assumption. So actually, I confirmed.
It should be. You might be surprised in your dead outs. So your dead outs will tell you pretty good stories.
Now, when you say dead outs, does that mean
Hives that died.
Okay.
So usually you'll see a good story in there. So sometimes it was one that I got too aggressive and threw frames in that were, I threw in the middle of a cluster and they weren't able to recover, or they weren't on strong enough flow, or maybe I ran out of feed in there. I wasn't super attentive with that, whatever. But I would go through those dead outs real close, take lots of pictures, post them on the Facebook page, and ask questions. Let a lot of other people chime in on it.
On your dead outs, you pull your frames, what's the easiest or best way to keep them from molding? Okay, you only have so much freezer space. You freeze them to kill anything, but then where do you put them?
Yeah, so PK's question, just in case the people online couldn't hear it, well, that's habit from work, is, she said, so I got all this drawn comb that might be dead outs, or I got extra drawn comb that the bees aren't on. How do I keep that from getting moldy? So one thing is if it's moldy, you probably learned a lesson that you had a moisture problem in that hive. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Sometimes it'll be moldy if your bees died in like November, and the bees set on that comb, it'll get moldy around the bees. So maybe it's like dead bee funk, I don't know what it is, but you'll see it'll get fuzzy on those frames, especially once it starts getting warm. So personally, what I do is I'll put it somewhere that's open, that gets air, that kind of stuff. I don't have freezer space for my stuff. I make sure all my gear freezes hard during the winter just to kill critters in it. Usually what I'll try and do is stack, I'll put a telescoping lid upside down. I'll put all my boxes as tight as I can on that stack, and I'll put a lid over the top of it. And they usually stay pretty good there. I personally haven't used crystals and the other things in there. I don't know. Arthur, you used some crystals this year, right? How'd that work out for you? Have you looked?
So far, so good. Yeah, I haven't had any problem.
So I mean, there's more than one way to do this. For those of you that have done this before, how do you combat that mold issue? Joe, anybody else? Same.
When you say crystals, what do you mean?
Right. Arthur, what's it called? Is it Paramoth or what's it? Paramoth. So it's kind of like mothballs. I think it's a little different. It has a different smell, don't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you have to replenish it about every 2 weeks or so. I have to put more in there because it evaporates. But just, like Tom says, stack the supers really tight and then I wrap them with duct tape so no air can get in there, and then just put those crystals on.
I know a lot of commercial guys will, or even guys that where their habit's gotten out of control, is they'll have a stack of boxes and then they'll take shrink wrap, clean, and they'll wrap it up with shrink wrap just to keep things tight so that bugs can't get in between, or mice or roaches will get in there too. So especially once it starts warming up, all the critters will move into there to try and get something to eat and things like that. So Yeah, they don't have that mothball smell and that strong. I don't know. I personally don't want my bees on mothballs. Just because I hate the smell too, but it's also hard on bees.
You know, my mediums that pulled, that are empty, I've made a box and I put cedar shavings in it and put a lid on it. Seems to be working out all right, keep moths out of there.
Yeah, so what Max said is on his is he'll put a stack of supers and I'll put a moisture board on top of that. So a box with some shavings in there to be able to suck up any residual moisture that might be in that stack. That's a good idea there too. The big thing, it sounds dumb, but you might be surprised that area you think is dry in your shed or in your garage might not be. So, definitely pay attention to that. Other questions?
So with the PK's point about the frames, if they've come through a winter like we've had, you shouldn't have to freeze them, correct? I mean, if they're.
You should have some good hard freezes for wax lawns this year. So you should be okay.
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm telling myself.
You're not going to hurt anything.
Well, I froze stuff last fall, but that's for this spring. But the things that had died out, I wouldn't think that I would have to freeze those again.
Yeah, so I know on mine, like a lot of my dead outs that I found, most of them were from my neglect. So most of them were ones that I either forgot what I was doing with feed on, because I wasn't super diligent with my notes when I fed. And I probably should have been more so, because I was just looking in the feeder, and if it had feed, I was still feeding it, or I would add feed if it didn't have it. So some of them, I don't know if I just didn't see it or what, but some of mine ran out of feed and things like that. But I did notice last year, as I suspected, the hive beetles came on strong about September, October. Normally hive beetles are coming on in June, July. So they were about a month and a half late last year. And I think that overtook a lot of hives after people stopped checking their hives. I think they said, well, our bees are going in the winter. I don't need to keep inspecting them. And they weren't able to see the wax moth damage or see the beetle infestations and stuff like that. So I know for a fact I helped some people with their hives where they were slimed from beetles late in the season, like September, October timeframe. So I think a lot of people see that. A lot of people, I think, lost their bees in October, November, September, October, November from mites. Just if you look at the Randy Oliver's mite load thing, their mites are going to peak as the bees come down, and if you don't take action on there, whatever it is, by splitting or doing mite boards or doing something, it doesn't necessarily have to be miticides, but you need to take action on that stuff. So if you didn't, your bees will tell you they'll be dead. So I think the Team Shiverdeckers here, they posted the Why Did My Bees Die from Megan Milbrath, one of my favorites, off of beinformed.org.
Actually, the one I just did was a different
The
one.
new one is a different one, but
Yeah,
if you scroll down a little
really
bit further,
good.
yep, if you search for Shiverdeckers, you'll be able to see his post that he did on that from Be Informed, or just Google Why Did My Bees Die. You'll find her write up where she's got a video now too.
The Randy Oliver, but you'll look on there where I did Randy Oliver, New Zealand.
I'm gonna talk about that one
Those-
next.
oh,
So
okay.
what I want to say is in her video, you don't have to take my words for it, because everybody wants to blame mites, and sometimes maybe it's not mites. Mites are easy to blame, but she actually will tell you and show you in that video how to tell it was mites, because you'll see the mite poop in the cells and stuff like that. You can pick it up and see it yourself. Now, if you're feeding sugar, sometimes it gets a little confusing as to whether that was sugar in cells or if it was mite poop, but unless you're feeding like ultra-fine sugar, you should be able to tell the difference, right? Because mite poop is really fine. So I'm sorry. So you posted one recently. Tell us about that.
The Randy Oliver, New Zealand. All you have to do is put it on YouTube. It's Randy Oliver, New Zealand. There's a total of 6 videos. There's 3 of them that are called Keynote, 3 of them that are called Workshop. They kind of overlap, but those 3 workshops are fantastic. And I've watched them several times because each time you listen to it, you learn more.
Randy's a great speaker. I got to see him at Indiana Bee School. I don't know, probably the second year I was beekeeping or third year I was beekeeping. Put that on your calendar for next year. I think you missed this year already, but that's well worth your time. It's over in Indianapolis. They do a great program, and I think it's like $50 to go to it all day. That's where I first heard about Randy Oliver and heard him talk. He's very engaging. He's not boring to listen to.
Part of that deal you were talking about, looking at the combs and seeing how much the bees are feeding in the combs. He talks about that and how to read those combs very thoroughly. It's really good. That's in the #1.
There was a good video. I'll have to dig for it and post it on our thing. I'll probably do it a little bit later in the season when everybody's hopefully starting to do their inspections. But there's a video called Reading the Combs that I learned about that's exceptional. It's like an hour-long video where a academic researcher, professor, she goes through and literally points out on a frame, this is what's going on here. This is what's going on here. Here's the clues. It's all that stuff to really help do that inspection. Any other questions?
Yeah, small hive beetles, can they overwinter inside the hive, or are they just totally like seasonal?
Yeah, I've seen them make it through winter.
Okay.
So the question was, will hive beetles overwinter in a hive? And I have seen them make it through the winter.
Because last year they were pretty bad. They got like really bad towards the end, but one day they're just gone.
Yeah, they came on hard late in the season, and then it got dry. So the beetles pupate in the dirt. So when it's wet, they can't pupate. So it's kind of like a natural fix on that. But well, I mean, they struggle with it. They're not as successful. I'll put it that way. So then it's also hard to use like diatomaceous earth and stuff like that when it's raining. You just put it down and just wash away or turn it into mud. Questions? Anything else anybody's seen in their hives right now? Anybody looked in their hives and seen anything interesting?
I saw bees.
Bees? That's pretty interesting to me. So I always like seeing bees. Definitely makes me smile when I go out and see the girls flying. That's for sure. It is cool having them by my house now. Definitely check your feed, because now is when a lot of hives will starve out if they haven't already. Just keep in mind, it's been awful warm, so when it's warm, they don't know that there's no blooms. Plus, they gotta get out and go poop. So they're gonna go out and fly, whether they need to fly or not. So to do that, they need calories. So they'll, I would suspect that if you haven't fed, you probably already lost your bees, or they're probably getting low on stores right now. So a bag of sugar is awful cheap. It sure beats a $125 and $130 pack of bees for $200 each. Anything else? Anybody online got a question? Everybody's trying to unmute, figure out how to unmute.
Our topic for the next meeting is hive inspection, so if that's helpful.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we're switching over to Wax Foundation, and after listening to Michael Bush on Saturday, kind of wondering if maybe we should try small cell. Anybody have any experience with small cell foundation?
I put on one foundation last year. I mean, that was my first year. So the news came with what they came with, and I put on some 5.1. They did okay for them.
I found that pretty interesting when you posted which of the manufacturers were what sizes. I thought that was interesting that, was it the Pirco or Acorn was like 5'2", and Man Lake was 5'1", and Big Dam was, I forgot, 5'1".
5.4.
I think we're looking at 4.9. And I would assume, first I was thinking, well, maybe we need to put in some drone comb then as well. But I would, then thinking about it more, it's like they're still going to make drone comb, right? I mean, they do on 5.4, so why not on 4.9?
If you're following his method, you shouldn't be using any foundation. But I mean, they'll make whatever where they want. So
Well, those girls didn't read the blueprints well sometimes.
mine will just make drone machine frames and do all that stuff. They'll find space to do it. But, you know, the other thing, if you're really nervous about drones or if you're raising
Put in
queens,
mediums.
you can put a medium in there. And if they're not on a super hard nectar flow, they'll draw that out with some drones and put it in there. If they're on a hard nectar flow, they'll make just a beautiful piece of comb on the bottom of it. That'll fit just perfect in the box. And I rarely had them attached. Once in a while, they get a little crafty. So one thing that I did notice on there that I really bit my tongue on that he was talking about is he was talking about plastic and about how you'll get the comb that runs just off of the surface of the plastic. So I didn't have a single instance of that with my heavy wax. Not one. I didn't have any issues with them drawing plastic on heavy wax, whether it was from Acorn or from Purco or from Manlake or whether it was stuff that I just smeared wax on. I didn't have any issues with that comb off the surface or any of those types of things. The only places I had that problem was on standard plastic with regular wax coating on it. So that's my experience in it. I don't know about others. Did anybody else have trouble with them drawing crazy comb on heavy wax?
I've never really had trouble with on wax or on plastic, period.
Oh man, mine was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I've seen some
I mean,
real
one
Picasso
or two
drawings.
here and there, but for the most part,
What's that? What?
we've never had a problem with them drawing on plastic.
And you weren't putting extra wax on?
Some we were,
We
but
put
not,
some extra wax on.
but not
do that.
across the board by
Maybe you sneak an
any.
extra wax on while you're not looking. That
Maybe.
could be with you too.
There was one time when I forgot to put a frame back in after I moved one over to another color.
That was pretty creative.
They'll get creative. But then you got some nice chunk honey.
It was gorgeous.
So
They didn't put any nectar in it yet, but it was the most beautiful wax
Right,
ever.
right. So yeah, you just, somebody was asking just for the benefit of everybody, they said, well, how do you put extra wax on those frames? What I do is I get a cheap crock pot either from an extra small one that I had that I moved up to a bigger one, or I've gone to Goodwill and bought some, or the thrift stores, garage sales, you name it. And I'll buy a small crock pot or like those little scent pots, those work good too. You can just put some wax in there and let it melt, and then just take a paintbrush and just smear it on. And it's a great thing to get kids involved. One of our members came out to your house, I think it was last year, and his daughter really got to town with that. And I think she did like 30 or 40 frames with it, and had them nice and thick.
Yeah.
And I bet they drew them out really nice.
Can you put it on too thick?
I don't think so. And you can smear it all over the wood too, you know.
Yeah, because they're gonna make it, they're gonna, kind of rearrange it a little bit on their own. So it's okay to, I think it's better off to be too much than too little on that. You can just buy those disposable brushes. I thought I'd try the little roller with the foam, that didn't work. The foam the little roller worked actually with it. I had like a small fuzzy roller, kind of an edge, and that worked pretty good.
I would say you want to get the wax probably maybe a little bit hotter than you would think you want to get it to. You definitely don't want it like with a skin on there. You don't want to get too hot because it will catch on fire. I can tell you that personally. Always have the lid for that crock pot. I will tell you that from a safety, like I used to be a firefighter, so I'll tell you that firsthand. Like either have a lid for that or get you a pie plate, something that'll fit tight over the top of that. If things go wrong, you want to be able to stop that fire. Hopefully not burn your wax too.
Yeah.
But it'd be a bummer to burn down your shed because you didn't pay $2.50 or $3 for the heavy coat wax. So yeah, definitely have something to be able to put that out. Fire extinguisher is always a good idea when you're working with that, especially if you're doing it over open flame. I've done it over open flame successfully and not had trouble with it. Just be really easy with it. I would highly recommend a crock pot. If you're gonna do it over open flame, use a double boiler. But definitely something to be able to put that out if it does catch on.
I've never done it this way. When the OTS book Mel talks about it, just take a block of wax and just let it get warm and just kind of scrape it on the
Like deodorant nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen that for a fact. One of the guys that helps me with bees, Michael Vaza, you'll see him post a lot. He's probably on the call right now, but he'll take and smear just a chunk of wax over it, or he'll ball up all the extra stuff that will scrape off, and he'll smear that on there. I'll be damned if you don't see that comb drawn only on the spots that you rub.
I was gonna say too, from my personal experience, I've found that they do better if it's on the sides of the cells rather than down in it. So when you're painting it in, you don't have to get it down in the cells, just brush
You
it
can just zip
across
right
the
over
top.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they do better with that.
that's true.
Now, where
At
would
least
you,
for me, they did.
where would you suggest, okay, if a new beekeepers don't have wax, any suggestions on where to get wax?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there's probably no good answers. So that was, I do believe very heavily with Michael Bush that there's a lot of contaminants in our wax, and a lot of it is just because it's the same old wax that we've been using over and over. I mean, University of Illinois did some research on that, I want to say 5-6 years ago, where they took samples of that wax and they found stuff that's been banned from the 70s in brand new wax. So brand new wax foundation. So there's, you know, you're going to have contaminants in there. I'd be really curious about that method that he said Bayer had for decontaminating wax. That's, I'm surprised nobody else has bought that off.
Bayer?
But yeah, surprisingly. But
The ones who contaminated?
they probably didn't contaminate that part. They contaminated after that. But
Okay.
yeah, that's a really good question. I would say, probably not gonna like this answer, but I think you're gonna get contaminated wax from anybody. You know, I can't guarantee that mine's not, because I mean, I live in the land of corn and beans, and we all do. So I mean, I know for a fact that all the soybeans around me get sprayed hard, and I put them on habitat that's very purposeful to be isolated, but you know, they have a mind of their own. They really like them soybeans when there's nothing else blooming. So they spray soybeans when they're in bloom. So those fungicides and pesticides are going to come back to the hive. So
I did find blocks of wax at Green Top. Those were Sassy's, you know.
So
I don't know where else you would get them.
I would say one thing to do is, doesn't help you now, but as you go through the year, you know, keep a margarine tub with you or something, an ice cream bucket or whatever you got. Hopefully you're not using margarine if you're worried about contaminated wax, but that's a whole different conversation. But you know, find something that you can scrape your frames, especially if you're freaky about having anything on your frames. I'm not, but anything that I gotta move out of the way, I'm not. I usually flick it off to the side. But like my friend Mike or Arthur, he usually goes and picks it up and puts it in that bucket for me. It's pretty mindful about that. So that's a good way to do it as well. Is just, you know, all those scrapings, just, you know, put them in a bucket and keep your own wax, and you'll know it. Start a top bar hive. That's a good idea. Put some mediums in there and scrape the bottoms off that they draw natural. That's a good way to get it. You know, there's ways to do it for sure. You can scrape some frames off that you have. I don't know why I would do that, but yeah, there's ways to get clean wax. We do have a solar melter, so you can clean that wax out pretty good with very little work. It does work pretty well. So yeah, there's probably no good answer about can I get it from somewhere. Personally, I'm really hesitant when somebody says they're treatment free. Like, I don't feel that there's such a thing as treatment free. I feel like you're doing some kind of treatments, whether it's manual manipulation or whether it's you know, some kind of frames, or you could use no chemicals. Like, I would ask those questions very strongly, and I would look for holes in their answers when they tell you that. So yeah, just I guess go with your heart when you talk to them.
What are you going down to Hobby Lobby and getting a block of beeswax?
It's like $17.
I'll sell it to you for half
a pound. It's like, I looked at it, and it's like $16, $17
eBay will sell
a
it to you
pound.
for half.
Sassy was like $8.
Yeah,
At Green Top.
You can get it on Amazon for $10.
I sell
About $10 a pound.
Yeah. So.
I'm lazy though. I only sell it in 4-pound bricks. But that's your results may vary.
So ask a beekeeper that's been here for a while and probably has some wax sitting around.
Exactly. Yeah, or they'll know where to get it. So I put a lot in the candles this year. So I really like burning beeswax candles. It really makes the house smell awesome.
Does
It's a
anyone,
natural ionizer.
does anyone here do top bars or anyone in the club do top bars?
Lewis had one, he did a 2-round, I think he said it died finally after 2 years, but
I'm gonna try 2 this year. What I'm doing with the swarm boxes, instead of putting in frames, I'm putting in the top bars. So if I get a swarm, you know, that's my goal.
if somebody wants to build me one,
I'll build you one.
I'll do it.
And then
My sister gave me 2, so
inspector,
I got
you
2.
okay with that?
Yeah, so the law, don't take my word for it, it's out there, you can read it, just look up Illinois Apiary Act, and you can read the details on there, all it says is that you have to have inspectable frames.
For the bars and frames, but it can be
It is.
respectable.
It'll be a frame of,
Removable comb.
it is a frame, because you're still lifting up that top bar that has the comb attached to it. I will tell you, they get really tricky in the heat, so you could have beautiful drawn, your comb on there, when you
Yeah,
go
so-
lift it up to look at it in the sun, you know, they're gonna be.
You have to,
really in the heat.
you know, okay, instead of flipping like this, you have to, you really kind of look from the bottom. You don't flip it up, because it just falls
They
off.
do require some manipulation too, so you gotta squeeze the bees over. Joe, have you tried one?
No.
He's out. No way was
You
it.
don't want to make work for yourself.
I kind of want one with like a window on there, cause like everyone that I've gone and worked, they have like a window on the side.
Yeah.
I just think that'd be cool to just sit down
Old
on
timer.
my chair with
If
beer.
you need looking at bee fix, out at Sugar Grove, the bees inside are going away, are still there and looking good.
Yeah.
So you can inspect it without opening it.
So we're gonna post, speaking of Sugar Grove,
Oh.
hopefully in the next couple weeks, we're gonna put down a date that we can all get, or some of us can get together to get, our club apiary set up. Oh, what's that? You didn't hear about that? So, we're gonna take the hives that the club bought, so just in case for some of you that are new, our club was started through, Illinois State University by Carl, the guy who wrote that. He put in for a grant and got a bunch of money from some source, but part of that was we bought a bunch of equipment and things like that, and we had it out to various club members to run with the idea that they would give us back half of the honey that we could sell for our events. So we're pulling those back in, and we're gonna run them out of Funk's Grove as you come in. So the really cool part about this is we're gonna do regular inspections on the weekends. So actually, we're probably gonna alternate weekends and weekdays. So I'll probably take the weekdays, and somebody else will probably take the weekends, I'm guessing. But maybe we'll alternate on there. So we'll post out when we're gonna go do that. And if you wanna come out and work the bees and see that, we'll have, 5 or 6 out
I
there.
think we'll have 4 to start with, and then there's the one down by the staff house. They have been sprayed, but they do need painting. So
Yeah.
there's gonna be, first thing is gonna be
I need my
painting.
hive tool back too. That I gave for people to spray.
Okay, yeah, that's where it came from. Okay, Izzy?
So I'm just starting a new hive this spring.
Yay.
And I was curious, you're talking about setting up a whole apiary out at Funk's Grove. Will there be an opportunity to watch you install a package out there before
Absolutely.
before your pickup date?
It would probably be
No.
close to his pickup date, because that's where the bees are coming from.
Same place.
Okay.
Gotcha. That's asking too much.
So, well, we could probably do it, you know, like, do it in the morning, and then you could do yours in the afternoon.
I have a video of it, and it's seriously
It's-
just as the video shows. It's,
Yeah, I've seen.
I know,
was just saying,
it's
if
like-
the opportunity was there.
Yeah.
you can, I'm gonna put in a bunch that afternoon if you wanna come out. Or we're gonna do the ones out at Funk's Grove too, so
That same
somewhere we'll
day,
be putting in some.
the
What's that?
same day you're gonna do it on Punk's Grove or when?
Probably
that day or the
the
next day.
next day.
It kinda depends, I probably wanna go to bed.
Well,
But actually, I usually get going pretty good, I don't wanna go to bed till like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But,
Oh,
yeah, we'll have opportunities there. Who knows what the weather will be, it could be snowing on the 18th. So that's happened before. I usually pick the third weekend for my bees because I haven't had snow on my days, but this will probably be the first year, right? But usually, like, I really hesitate, like, the people that get their bees on the 1st of April. I know it works out sometimes, and it works out for a lot of people, but I really think you're putting your bees at a disadvantage then, but
Okay,
So-
Tom, maybe there's some of these new kids, they're gonna get their package of bees. How should they get them home? When they get them home, what they should do, or?
So, Joe, do you want to say how you do it? I don't want to be the only one talking.
Well, basically, just, when you get your bees, just keep them cool.
How would you suggest doing that?
Just put them in your basement if you've got it, in a cool, dark place. Spray them with some sugar water.
Cool, not hot, not cold. Cool.
And because that can inside may not be feeding them as well as it should be. And just install them as soon as you can.
Because sometimes you pick them up and you're gonna do it like that afternoon and thunderstorm comes, so so you gotta think about, okay, would you say a couple days would be okay? The sooner the better, I
If
get
you
that.
buy, if you buy them through the mail, they've been sitting.
If you don't have any options, yeah, a couple days. would be
Couple days,
fine.
So again, he's talking about spraying with sugar water, so they got the food and things like that, so. Because they do have a can in there, but it's tough to tell whether that can's full, empty, they're drinking.
So if you get your bees shipped in the mail, hopefully you're not, but if you do, I mean, you buy from somebody else besides me, I don't care, just don't buy them through the mail. Because it really beats them up pretty good, but they'll be in the mail for at least 3 days. At least 3 days. So they don't ship those overnight, all that stuff, so, and the post office is the only one that ships livestock, so. I find that the post office is pretty scared of bees, especially ours. They will let you know as soon as you get them. If you're gonna get them shipped to you, go to the post office. I personally will go and not call, but I'll go talk to them and say, hey, I'm expecting them coming, or I could get your chicks coming, tell them that your chicks are coming. But tell them ahead of time that you got something coming and that they could holler, as soon as they come in, you'll come, whatever. Because usually where they come in, they're there till like 9 o'clock at night. So that they will call. I have them call me all the time for queens when they come in. They've been really good with me now. After I filed a bunch of claims for dead bees, they started calling me and taking care of them. And they actually look for them, and I've had great opportunities showing them the queens and having them feed them and do all that stuff. And it's really kind of helped change some of that fear with the post office. But a lot of times the post office is really nervous about bees because there's always some stragglers on that cage. So a lot of times they'll push them with a forklift, or they'll push them with their foot, or they don't necessarily take good care of them.
And
They'll leave them out on the dock.
or out in the sun, they're gonna get cooked, so.
Definitely let them know you got bees coming and say, call me anytime, I'll come get them.
Also, if you do have that package and you gotta keep it in your basement, if there's 2 or 3 or 4 bees on the outside, they're gonna just stick to the outside. They're not gonna go through your whole house. I had one package last year, it wasn't one of yours, it was one from the other ones. It actually had a small hole in it. I probably got 30, 40 bees out. They just stuck with the package of bees.
Yeah, usually if bees do come into your house, like on your veil or whatever, they'll just sit on the glass. So they'll sit on your window where the sun is. And they'll move to the window that has the sun, as the sun moves during the day. So
And I
you
saw
can pick them up. And
a
pick 'em up.
strong example, because I had to take at Sugar Grove, take the hive outside, and then I had to take it inside to put it back on its stand and stuff, and some of the extra bees. And the door that they had on the west, I just waited there with the bee bat and kind of like waited a little bit, and that's where they wanted to congregate, was at that window.
Yeah, they'll usually go to the light. That includes your car when you're hauling them home.
Yeah.
I have nukes all the time on my passenger seat. I'll run them in the passenger seat, not in the back of the truck, because I can get the air conditioning. I care about my bees.
Well, you pimp those girls.
I do. They treat them good, they treat you good.
Okay, did you have another question back there? No, yeah, you, don't turn around.
I was looking at the, all those dates you were talking about at the beginning, the outreach at the ranch and, Flanagan thing and IQI field day. Are those all, I mean, I've never been to your club meeting before, so are those all through the club?
Those are through the Illinois Queen Initiative.
IQI?
They will be sponsored through our club, so we get the state insurance. So the ISBA gives us indemnity insurance on those events.
So you'll see those events come up on the club?
They'll be on the
Yeah. They'll be both, on our website and on on the Facebook page, both of those.
They're on my Huntington page. They'll hopefully be on the IQI here pretty soon, where you can pay online and get it.
Okay.
The field day will be free. So
Okay. Any other questions? Any other ideas? How's that meat tasting?
Oh,
Oh.
good. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were talking to me.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, that's why I'm staring at you.
well, thanks everybody for
Okay,
coming.
thank you.
Hopefully we'll see you next month. Bring a friend with you. Bees and beer, or whatever we're calling it
Bees
now.
and Brews is
It'll be
the
2 weeks.
a,
The second Wednesday.
and will you send me, Mark, will you send me where?
It's for the 2 doors down in Clinton, Illinois.
It's the name of it is 2 Doors Down?
That's the name.
Oh, I thought you meant 2 doors there. I'm thinking, where is it? Okay, 2
Yes.
Doors Down.
Super nice guy, runs that place.
Oh.
He's a local Wilmington guy.
I'll have to make sure that they're open late that night or at least 10 at night.
Okay.
But I'm gonna try 2 doors
We'll
down.
post it on Facebook.
2 Doors Down,
It's like the
okay.
second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday of the month.
Two
Second Wednesday of the month.
Oh, okay.
down. You said that's in, Clinton.
Where I thought that's what it was like, just last month.
Okay, 1112 Warner Court, Clinton. Okay.
All right, guys, everybody online, thanks for joining. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. Nice crowd for the weather. Nice crowd.